Hiya, so next bit is having a look at what we call the river's long profile. And the only way I can explain what we do with this is if we are to go back to my lovely cabbage leaf again, if we were to cut the river from the mouth to the source that way, and were to kind of put it on a diagram, that's what we're kind of talking about. So if we kind of took it from that perspective and put it on a theoretical diagram, that's our long profile. So what you've got, if we cut it in half, is hopefully you can see very, very, very steep slopes in the upper courses. And then as we get towards the mouth at the end, we kind of flatten out a bit. So the first labels we're going to add to this diagram is we've obviously got our source at the top here, and we've got the mouth of the river down here by the sea. And we have phrases for these different sections. So the top bit from source to kind of a third of the way down, we call the upper course. Then surprisingly in the middle, we have the middle course. And then finally at the bottom, we have the lower course. And they're the phrases that we'll use, so get used to using those. So the upper course of the river, as you can see, the river is quite thin. It's not very wide at all. It can meander because it can, as it goes through mountainous areas, can kind of wind its way around different mountain tops. But in general, it is much straighter in the upper course than it is in the middle and the lower course, where we tend to get these big sweeping meanders. But the biggest things to kind of look at is, one, the steepness of the land is very, very steep, and two, the river is very, very thin. Then as we get to the middle course, we've still got some sort of slope there. So we haven't completely flattened out, but we're not going to have mountainous areas in the middle courses. It's going to be gentle sort of slopes. As you can see, the river is starting to get wider. We've got more volume of water. Remember from our last bit, we might have tributaries joining the stream at this point too, bringing sort of lots more water, hence a much wider river. And it's going to get a bit faster in terms of its flow because you've physically got more water there too. And as you can see, we start getting these big meandering sort of shapes in the stream. Then we get to the lower course where, again, you should be able to notice our river is now much, much wider. Sometimes you can stand one side of the river and you can't even see the other side. That is how wide the section in the lower courses can be. Of course, if you get quite a small little river, it's not going to be that wide. But the Amazon, for example, you could be mistaken for thinking you're at the sea because you literally could not see the other side of the river if you were near the mouth. And also, we are still going to get these big sweeping meanders. But like I said, they're so big you might not even be able to notice them, but you'd see them from an aerial view. But notice the land is much, much, much flatter as you come down to getting towards sea level. So the task you've now got to do is you've got to draw what we call a cross profile of the upper, the middle and the lower course of the river, and start to see what sort of features and things we tend to get in these different parts of the river course. So a cross profile is different. So we said the long profile is when we cut the river from the mouth to the source, long ways, it would look like that. A cross section is if we were to cut across the river this way. So what we're going to almost do is kind of draw what we'd expect to find if we cut the river like that, cut the river like that, and then cut the river like that. Now there's two very distinctly different things. If we were to cut from there to there, there to there and there to there, we would see the sides of the land and the river in the middle. So what they'll sometimes ask you in the exam is to draw a cross profile of just the river, or a cross profile of the whole valley. So they're two distinctly different things. So we're going to do a cross profile of the whole valley. Now what you'd notice in the upper courses, if we cut from A to B up here, is we said it's going to be mountainous up here. We get very, very steep sides. So if we were to have a look at this, we would have very, very steep sides. So what we tend to do with cross profiles is we put A to B where we're kind of doing the cross profile from, and then on our cross profile we would then write A and B as well, so that anyone looking at this would know that this is a cross section of this little section of our long profile, if that makes sense. Now the river is going to be quite small and it's going to be right at the bottom of this little valley there. So if we're drawing a cross profile of the entire section, we've got our steep sided valleys, what we call a V-shaped valley, and at the bottom we've got a tiny amount of water, our tiny little river at the bottom. So if we were to do the same and we were to do a cross profile of our middle section, so let's put C and D there, and again we can put C and D over here. Again, you can probably guess how different this is going to look. So we're still going to have some sort of steepness to our sides, but nowhere near as steep as they were before. Sorry, my doorbell's just gone, bear with me.